again, good day, and welcome to the Constitution Line by Line. I'm Paul Fabrizio.
And I'm Don Frazier. I'm handling the history. He's handling the political science.
Wow. And let's do the Constitution, shall we?
Yeah, I think we should. So we're now on Article 5.
That's right. We're working our way through. Not many people pay much attention to the articles after 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Because they lay out the three branches of government.
But 4, 5, 6, and 7 are kind of a big deal, too.
Yeah, but they're the grab bag of stuff.
Well,
so
you got to put it somewhere.
You do. So what we're going to be talking about today is how do you amend the Constitution?
Oh, well, that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get frustrated that they can't get their way, and they would like to bypass the normal ways of amending the Constitution. And instead, they float it through some other mechanism like the Supreme Court or something else. So it becomes the law of the land by fiat instead of through this procedure.
Right.
So,
and when you think about it, just before we read it, one of the things to know is that the framers of the Constitution were humble enough to admit that there could be changes to their handiwork.
Correct, but they couldn't have been done frivolously.
That's
you
right.
had to work at it.
That's right.
Now, have you been reading any of the comments?
No.
From listeners? It's been pretty funny. Pretty interesting. Some of them very insightful.
Okay, I'll need to do that.
Yeah, it'll be very instructive. But one of the criticisms we're getting is, well, why are you fixated on, things like slavery and all that sort of stuff? And the simple answer is because the people who wrote this document, that was the angle they're coming from.
Exactly. And, it's called the original sin of the United States.
Yeah, so it's...
And it affects us to this day. And precedents that may not be related to slavery were set as they dealt with slavery, and it continues today.
Correct. In particular, this had to do with direct taxation, but that'll be a conversation for another day. So what's the word today?
The word.
We'll hear from
Here
the
we
word.
Go. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of several states.
Wow, we got a lot of ratios.
And it's still going on, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress. Ready? We keep going.
Okay.
Provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any matter affect the first and fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate.
So what were they referring to, that first section?
To be honest, I don't remember.
Yeah, man, we'd have to look back.
We're going to take a quick look back at this.
But I think that's interesting that you have two mechanisms. One is a constitutional amendment can come from the Congress, or it can come from 2/3 of the state.
In a convention.
In a convention. Well, they can call for a convention. But then, in order for it to be amended, you got to have 3/4. So the 2/3 that say we need to have a convention still have some convincing to do.
Yes.
In order to get to that 3/4.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. So, by the way, that part about referring back to the earlier parts of the Constitution was referring to the slave trade. Okay? And remember that the Constitution abolished the slave trade after 1808.
Well, yeah, the importation of slaves.
And that could not be affected. You could not amend
so that was
part.
protected. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. Slavery again. Okay, simply put, there's two parts to an amendment process. There's the proposal process and the ratification process.
Correct.
And so to propose it, Congress proposes an amendment, or the states do it through a convention. And so far we've had 27 amendments to the Constitution. All of them have come from proposals from Congress. We've never used the other one. However, many states over time have called for a
constitutional,
convention.
constitutional
But
convention.
we haven't got enough yet. We haven't got to the two-thirds yet to actually have one.
Now, what's interesting is, once again, I'm going to fall back on my Civil War training.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry. But nobody quite knew how to secede or what the mechanisms would be. So that secession occurred either through a meeting of the state legislature or through a special convention that was called by a number of counties or whatever, a certain plebiscite. So
they took the constitutional idea and they applied it at the state
So we
level.
can do this two ways as well.
Yeah.
So in many ways, it's an unconstitutional amendment.
Yeah.
It's the anti-constitutional
Yeah, to
amendment.
break apart the Constitution.
Yeah, you need to do such and such.
Right.
Yeah.
So to propose, there's two ways to do it. And then to ratify, there's two ways to do it. And again, one is through the state legislatures, or the other is through state conventions that we're talking about. And the way that has always been done has been through the state legislatures.
Interesting.
And just as a historical oddity, there has been about 10,000 amendments proposed for the Constitution, but only 27 have actually been through the process.
Well, thank goodness.
And most of those amendments proposed got no place. They didn't get any support or anything like
Sure.
that.
Or they might have been the very frivolous ones
Yes.
that the framers were hoping to guard against.
Exactly. One of them that was introduced for years and years and years was to have a balanced budget.
Yeah, I know about the balanced budget amendment.
And in fact, one of the congressmen who used to represent the Abilene area, Omar Burleson, he was known for proposing this.
Wow.
So, he tried to get it as the first thing on the congressional docket, so it would be called HB1, and but it got no place.
Just never got any
We
traction.
still don't have a balanced budget today.
Well, I'm pretty glad we don't.
Yeah, and there's also the Equal Rights Amendment. That was a famous one that was proposed in the 70s.
And it's gonna bounce back again.
Yeah, it was actually mentioned in recent presidential debates here in 2020 elections. So.
Yeah.
So there we go. It's there.
But it's tough to do.
Yes.
So 3/4 of the states.
Have to approve.
So out of
Have
50,
to ratify.
they
38.
38 have to do it.
33 can call for a convention.
Yeah. 38 have to ratify it.
Yeah.
So that just leaves 12 out. So let's just pick 12. So let's say the New England states, New York, Illinois,
Oh, the biggest states.
California.
The biggest states, the Democratic states, is the Democrat states.
You know, I hadn't made that connection, but it's an
Okay.
interesting voting pattern. So let's see, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Vermont, People's Republic of Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, I already said New York, so then Illinois, California,
Oregon, they all vote.
Washington,
Hawaii.
yeah, Hawaii. So technically, if the other states besides those wanted to tell those guys or pass some sort of constitutional amendment that those people would hate,
They could do it.
they could do it. That's how concentrated and divisive modern politics are.
Yep. But we've been through it before, and
Maybe we just haven't had the right amendment.
are you proposing one?
No, I'm just wondering. I think it's interesting that we've got.
Let's take out California
Yeah,
right
let's
now.
make
We're going to do it by
California
constitutional
illegal.
amendment.
California, just by being
that's my
California,
home,
is
that's my
unconstitutional. No, I'm just saying that we've finally gotten to the point with how the country is divided up that this very states' rights-centric approach, because this isn't based on population, this is based on states.
Correct.
We've gotten to the point where, in many ways, we could vote people off the island or vote constitutional amendments that they wouldn't like.
Right. But we've been through similar things before in American history, the period leading up to the Civil War, of course.
Sure.
And then it was much more bound by geography and slavery.
Sure.
So,
I mean, there was definite markers that separated the country.
yeah.
Now it's just, social media.
Yeah.
Social media and the real media. So,
Now, one of the things that I think is interesting about this is who is excluded from the process. It's not a quiz. It's the president.
Mm-hmm.
The president.
Yeah, he doesn't have any say so.
The president doesn't have any role. But how many times in our history have we had presidents say, I'm going to push through an amendment to the Constitution to have a line item veto, for example?
Yeah, correct.
And the reality is that the president is powerless except through the power to persuade.
Yeah.
And
that's the way the Constitution's set up. Everybody thinks the president is omnipotent and omniscient.
No way.
Absolutely under no circumstances, unless people just surrender their jurisdiction.
Right. Congress is the one that's key. Congress is the center, but Congress has to act.
Yeah,
and if they
Congress
choose
needs to
not
be populated by grown-ups. Yeah.
And if they choose not to, or if they're unable to come to any divisions or any agreements, then the other branches can swoop in. And
because nature hates a vacuum.
Yes, indeed.
And those guys will fill that
power vacuum.
Yeah, exactly.
So 27 amendments have made it through the whole process. 10 of those, of course, were the original Bill of Rights.
Yeah.
And the 27th Amendment, historical little fact here, the 27th Amendment was originally one of the Bill of Rights.
Oh, yeah.
And
we'll talk about that at the end of this series.
But it took 203 years to get ratified into the Constitution.
In two of those amendments,
they cancel
each other out. And it's
Prohibition.
All about liquor. I can't imagine that you could get 3/4 of the states to agree to ban the sale and distribution of alcohol.
Yeah, we just don't understand that time, do we?
We don't. That'll be a fun one to talk about when we get there.
Yeah, and we'll get to that later.
So much to talk about. All right, so this is the mechanism. So going forward, when we get to the amendments, you'll understand what the mechanism is. You got the ratios. It's 2/3 to propose a convention, and 3/4 to get it ratified.
Or 2/3 of the House and the Senate to propose it, and then still you go back 3/4 of the states have to agree, and that's tough.
That's tough.
Amendments are very, very rare. Right now, there isn't any amendment that is proposed that's out there that's stirring the people's passion that's likely to affect the Constitution.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our line.
That's our line.
All right, so another line next time. Thanks for watching.